it's important to talk about steadiness. That the high achiever is an individual who not only has the superior skill that they have a passion for, but the high achiever is an individual that's able to manage it over a period of time. And time is a key ingredient to this whole strength vortex concept, where you have these 6 different components. And again, time is one of these key components. Now, the ideal amount of time that I see performers focusing this superior skill is about 10,000 hours, or approximately 10 years. There's something that seems to happen after 10 years of doing it, continuously improving it, continuously galvanizing it. You've seen performers do this. Beethoven had 10-year time periods where he was dramatically getting better and better during those periods. And he had specific styles that were recognizably getting better during those 10-year periods. And then he'd have another 10-year period. And this whole 10,000-hour idea is amazing. But looking at how a skill is consistently stayed in focus, how you continue to stay in the flow of this skill, there's something very, very psychological about the process, certainly. And here's the idea is that we are, as people, we are movie makers. Human beings are movie makers, and every day when we get up, we go into the day, and we essentially have expectations about how the day is going to go. And so we start going through the day, and we expect it to go a certain way, and then bang! Suddenly we have a bang, and the bang is the surprise, sudden turn of events that the universe just didn't seem to cooperate with us on. And it's not a function of our flawed thinking. It's not a function of our malintent. It's not our subconscious trying to subvert or to neutralize what we're doing. It's just simply the way things go. Because as you go into the future, you have a 50-50 chance. 50% of the time you will succeed, 50% of the time you won't. It's not about avoiding failure over time. That's not the deal. The deal is what to do when things don't go your way. And there will be bad days as just as many as good days. And the bad days will help you appreciate the good days. So how do you do it? And what I'd like to talk to you about is a rebound process. I call this the Redirection Pivot. It's called the Redirection Pivot. And essentially the tool is an inner talk concept. It's an inner talk instrument that allows you to independently, without needing external stimulation or help or coaching, it essentially allows you the ability to redirect yourself and really turn a situation that could have gone bad into a huge opportunity. You see, we have 2 different ways we can go with a bang. One way we can go is we can go into the negative, and we can react to it. We can get angry. We can get off track. And then it lingers, and that residue can carry throughout the day, even weeks, even months, or even years, or even lifetimes. Because some of these setbacks that occur to us that we didn't expect, sometimes we might talk to ourselves about what it says about us or what it proved to us that we feared we couldn't do, or we begin to internalize it and it starts to tarnish our identity. And it just doesn't need to be that way. That by some awareness, by you seeing the tendencies that you have and seeing how predatory this possibility is, you may put that in the bleachers. You kind of be your own bouncer and say, I could turn this situation downward or upward. You have a choice. So you're sitting there. The first thing I would do in the redirection pivot, step 1, is to take out a piece of paper. Okay? It's best to get your ideas from behind your eyes out in front. So we're going to go in slow motion. You have the ability to slow this down. Rather than naturally react on your typical automatic ways, you just say, wait a minute here. I've got a situation. I can go either way. It can ruin my day, or it can ruin my life, or I can look at this and I can leverage from it. I can get an opportunity here. How could I flip this over? I call it a jiu-jitsu. In jiu-jitsu, you flip something over. You can imagine a martial arts person who has an opponent and has an opposing force, and here you are, you've got this situation, and it's your choice whether you want to make that opponent an opposing force, or like they say in Aikido, A-I-K-I-D-O, Aikido, it's an art where you're really not on the offense attack, but when energy does come at you, and opposing energy comes at you, really what the person does, the fighter does, is you redirect the energy to a better place. In other words, you use the force's energy on itself, and it just has no power. And so this is something that we can use in our lives, because we do have bangs and we do have opposing forces that come about all day long. We do have fires that do pop up. We do have unexpected phone calls. We have interruptions. We have events that suddenly turn on their side. And it's the inevitable play of the universe. It's the card hand that they play. So the first question that I want you to answer is, what were my expectations? Because you had a set of expectations going into it. So clarify, what were your expectations before you went in? And this will help you clarify the thoughts, the story that you have about why you may have gotten emotional or reacted the way that you're reacting. Because all feelings are connected to thoughts. And the emotions that we tend to feel, whether it's anger, frustration, feeling glad or sad or mad or happy, it comes from a thought. So when you write down what were my expectations, you're not saying that this thought was bad. All you're doing is simply looking at what's going on. And this is the second question, and it is this: what is going on? What is going on? And when you define what is going on, what you have the opportunity to do here is to be objective about it. Imagine being the fly on the wall, not inside your skin. Take your name out of it. Imagine being outside yourself, and you're behind a glass wall, and you're looking at the scene. What is going on? You can even write these statements down with your name. Say, my name. John is doing this. John is feeling this. This is what happened. And as you write it down, you begin to see, wow, there's good, there's bad, and there's ugly. What you're looking at here, the merit of doing this is in how truthful you can be. Now, you have to look at what's working and what's not working in the situation. So what's working and what's not working? What are the driving forces? What are the restricting forces? What's working? What's not working? So as you write these facts down, you're looking at what's working, what's not working. You're really looking at a point A. You're looking at what is going on today, here, now, in the present, in the situation I find myself. The third step is to ask yourself, what do I want to create? In other words, take yourself out of current reality thinking for a minute and observation, and put yourself into what you want to create. Reorient yourself to the outcome. And this will help you get out of your head and get back into what is most important to you. In other words, what matters most right now. So it gets you out of any problem to be solved, and this way you're oriented around something you want to generate. Okay, the next question that you can write down, the answer to this question is what needs to change? What needs to change? And within that question, here's a few others. What needs to start? What needs to stop? And what needs to continue? What needs to start? What needs to stop? And what needs to continue? And here you are, you're asking these questions. Now, I said what needs to change. You may not need to change anything. I mean, you could say what needs to continue, and something may be working. It just was it was a learning process on where to make adjustments. Now, if you need to start something, it means there's something that you haven't been doing that you need to start doing. And if you're going to stop doing something, there's a component or a full behavior or some choice that you made that should not be made again. So this is where the real learning comes in, is what do I need to change or adjust? And then we're going to assume that we handle this situation again, but we're going to handle it with more skill and more finesse. So let's create a system for action. I call these systematic actions. And usually there's 5 or 7 steps in any system. So try to break down this event and turn it into a template so that you are equipped, just like being ready, like Karate Kid was in Miyagi. He had a set of combinations. He had 3 or 4 moves together. It was like ba 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 ba, and the guy would throw the punch and ba 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 ba. And then after a while, he looked over to his coach and he said, "Watch me do this. I'm getting more confidence every fighter that comes out here. Okay, watch me do this one." And he's almost the receiver of that information himself. He's watching himself saying, "Hey, watch me do this. Wow, look what came out of me. Watch me do this." So every single time he came back, he would try it again, and he would go through sort of the same process. Well, what did I expect? Okay, what's going on here? What's working? What's not working? And then you look at, well, what do I want to create? Okay, well, I want to win this match. And then he looks at, okay, what do I need to change? Start, stop, or continue. And then he goes, well, what are my, what's the systematic form of action, or what are the systematic actions? What steps? And if you already have a systematic action plan, then what you could do is you could re-engineer and optimize those steps so that you can take delivery of the result more often. So imagine this is sort of it's a flip over, it's a pivot, it's a a complete redirection. It's a 180 from a moment when you get clocked unexpectedly. It's like, whoa, this didn't go as I planned. And you suddenly have an opportunity for learning. And it's a real architecture for learning, for you to be able to moment make these kinds of changes. But yet being strategic, meaning that you're oriented by knowing what really matters, and you're also oriented by knowing what's really going on. You look at what you have, and you look at what you want. It's like looking at your intention and your attention at the same time. You're attending to something now, but you're intending to have something happen. And the goal here is to establish a sense of synchronicity, which is when your intention is in direct alignment with your attention, that what you're doing and what you're bringing your attention to is in direct alignment with your intention, hence high performance, lower margin of error, more consistency, more steadiness. And so as you're going through life and you're focusing on your superior skills, whether you demonstrate them in business or any other dimension, here you are going along and you get a bang. So let's talk about a couple of other bang examples so that you can apply this, One of the bang examples I have is a time when I was on a telemarketing team when I was in my 20s. And I had a sales manager that taught me this. And I was having a very bad night. I was on the Sunday night team, and I would call out, and I was selling workshops, and my job was to land a registration every night I was there, at least one registration, or at least meet the goals that I had said I would, meet my quota. And I had had a bad night, and we had a team meeting about 2 hours into a 3-hour run. So 2 hours would go by, we had a short meeting, we would check in, make any adjustments, and then we'd get back out there and finish off the rest of the time. And it was like a checkup from the neck up, as Zig Ziglar would say. If anybody had any stinking thinking, the meeting was designed to completely wash out and brush out any crap that we had in our mind. And I certainly had a lot of it. And so I was having a bad night, and I was in a slump, and things just weren't going my way. People weren't reacting well on the phone to me. I don't know what was going on, but things were just not happening. And then I got finally one call that just threw me a total spin. It was somebody I knew, and their reaction really got to me, and I got all fouled. My wiring got all fouled. So my manager said, well, hey, what were you expecting? And I said, well, I was expecting them to, pay me the money and register for the workshop and really get that I was coming from a sincere place. And I was expecting that they would trust me, and I was expecting. And she said, well, write it all down. And I stopped, slowed down, and I wrote it all down. And then I asked myself, well, what's going on? What's working, what's not working? And what was going on was I was real honest with myself and said, what's going on is I'm really focused on just the money. And what's going on is I'm not listening to this person. That's what's not working. And what is working is that my energy was good. I mean, my energy was good. It was high energy. But what was not working was, what was going on was every single call I was on, I was taking the previous call to the next one. It's like in tennis, if you get to the next shot and the last shot was a failed shot, it was out of bounds, but you reacted to it, you take that last ball to the next ball, and then the next ball, and then the next ball, and the next thing you know, you have a repeat offense of continuous failures. So I was on that downward spiral and that negativity death sentence, and I really got where I was at. So I looked at what happened, and I defined, I said this, I wrote this down, the person's response was this, and then they reacted this way, and here's how I felt, and just got it all out of my head, and I looked at, here's what's really going on. And then I went to what do I really want to create? So I departed from what I didn't want to be looking at, which is naturally looking at current reality, even though I had to, and I did. We don't like to look at current reality, right? Because it's what we'll react to when we see it. But I did, and that's where change is made. All progress starts with the truth. Then I asked myself, well, what do I want to create? And this was a very liberating change. It was like a crossover, like a light switch. It was as if somebody cut off the electricity in question 2 because I felt real lousy. But it wasn't about how I felt. It was whether I could accurately see it, and I was objective about it. And then I went into what do I really want to create? And my manager said, she said, this is really what decision is about. It means to murder the alternative, JD. It means decide. And decide means that you decide. You kill the alternative, like homicide, right? Suicide, you murder the alternative. Decide. So I decided what I wanted to create. And she said, she said, any given moment, you can completely plug it back in. I mean, you can completely decide what you want to create. And it doesn't have to be in any connection to what you've been doing. It's just simply what you want to create. And you can redirect yourself this way. And I just felt this enormous surge of energy, like juice had gotten flooded back into my batteries. And I wanted to create a sale, but I wanted to also really help somebody. I mean, I really wanted to do was to move someone's life that night. I wanted to help them find an experience that would help them get over some of the challenges that they were having to their goals. And that's what the workshops were geared to do. And I believed in the workshops. It wasn't that I didn't have a good product. One of the statements I made was I did believe in my question 2 that we did have a good product. And then in 3, what do I want to create? So I got really clear in mind, in my heart, what I wanted to do. So I was facing a new direction. And then I looked at, well, what do I need to start, stop, or continue? So now I got excitement back in the batteries. And then I started asking, well, what needs to change? And the first thing I thought was, what needs to change is I need to change the way I go into the call. I need to change the way I ask my questions and how I introduce myself and how I clearly come to terms on the purpose of the call and open the conversation. Because before, what wasn't working was I was bringing out my product and I was just talking about the features. And my manager said, that's not what they want to hear. They really want the conversation to be about them. So I got this. I thought, that's so true. This is a conversation that is geared around value for them. It's not geared around knowing what I'm doing. It's not. I was calling as if I was updating people. Hey, here's what I'm doing lately. Hey, here's a seminar I'm doing. Here's a workshop I'm selling. Want to be part of it? And there's only a certain group of people that know me well enough and like me well enough that are going to say yes to an offer like that. Otherwise, it's not general. It's not universal enough to be successful. So I had to start reorienting how I did the call. I had to stop saying so much up front and asking more questions. And I needed to continue my good energy level and continue with my heart in the right place and continue believing in my product. So now it's becoming really clear. And then I asked myself, what are the systematic actions? So I converted this event into a process. And I took out another piece of paper and I started writing down the actual choreography of the call. I reoriented how I would prompt the first sentence. I reoriented how I would get a green light from the individual to ask them if it was okay to ask them a few questions about their direction and where they currently are and talk about some of the more intimate areas of their life and if it was okay to do that. And I then rewrote how I introduced the whole workshop program, and I came up with about a 7 or 8 step model and started working with it. And I realized that it may not have been the end-all model, but it was dramatically better than what I was doing. So I went back in again, and that night I landed a sale. And it was a great glory. It was a terrific moment of triumph to move from utter despair and negativity to a complete turnaround and a redirection. That's the redirection pivot, is I completely turned that around and made myself, number one, a better person as a byproduct, but also became a better seller as a byproduct, and really got that everything is practice. That everything you're doing is practice. Number 2 is that if my identity was all caught up in the results that I was seeing, I wouldn't have been able to use the failures that I was experiencing as assets. And that's a key piece. So to redirect myself. And then over that time, as I got better at this, I just consistently was working on optimizing that process and going through this redirection pivot. So if I was expecting something and then I got a bang, I would go through this process again of what's working, what's not working, what's going on, what do I want to really create, what really orients me, what matters most, and then what do I want to start, stop, or continue, what needs to change, and then lastly, what are the systematic actions? And if I was consistently optimizing this system, I really got it to a point where it was a secret weapon. I got it to a point where over the scope of so many calls, I actually reached, I almost won first place in a number of quarterly competitions, which I had never experienced over the time I was there. In the years I'd done it, I'd done this telemarketing piece for 2 years. And toward the latter part of my career aim there, I never got number one because there were very good reasons why I didn't get number one. And one was I didn't respect the amount of hard work that the number one person had to do, and I didn't want to make that many sacrifices to my family. So I evened out my values with my goals and lived with like fifth place. And it was totally successful for me, and it didn't matter where I placed on the list. What really mattered to me was that I had done what I wanted to create, and that was to move certain people in the experience, and the sale was the transformative conversation to do it.